Welcome to Across the Bifrost, the Mighty Thor podcast, where on each and every episode we explore the world of Marvel's Mighty Thor. I'm your host for today, Eric Teskey, and I'm joined with my brother from another pantheon, the Fazguardian.
Guys, I'm so excited. We're back with another 100 in the Deific duo's journey into mystery, road to 800. Herc, how you feeling?
Part four, Deific Duo Journey, I'm going to say it too. Journey into Mystery, road to 800, part 4. This is the fourth installment of our sometimes extra show woven within a show where Faz
it's the most important thing we do, for sure. The other stuff's just so we can do this.
Faz and I are on a quest to read all of the Legacy Thor comics in order, starting with Thor's first appearance, all the way to finishing with what will be the 800th issue of Thor sometime next year. So we are, let me give some quick stats here, 55.85% done with our challenge. This installment is going to cover issues 383 through 482, / maybe 483 because of Donald Blake cliffhanger. But That's the era that we're talking about today. And it's not just me and Faz. We actually have a guest who is in the backseat of the car on this road trip with us.
Oh, that's nice. Is he properly seatbelted, Eric?
He's comfy and cozy, and he's looking out the window. He's playing car games with us, like I Spy with My Little Eye. It's definitely not what he was doing before. You know, I've just decided this is a retcon that actually he's never been tied to the goat boat. This whole time he's been in the backseat of the car or in Mount Wundagore or killed by Loki's wife. You know, something like that.
I'm pretty sure he's just a shell fake version of him because we accidentally killed him at the end of the last Journey into Mystery. I think that's probably what happened. But
it's probably
next time I take over, I'll just
retcon
retcon it over. It'll be fine. Yeah.
No one's going to notice. It'll be fine. So Ryan, welcome in the backseat.
I love that so much. Oh my God, guys!
Friend of the show, Ryan Doze is back, guys.
I know, it's so good to be back finally, and I'm not like borderline, BDSM tied to something or tied up to something.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Why would you say something like that? Yeah.
Which is it's refreshing, to be honest, to have the freedom to have full use of my extremities and all that. It's good, but I have a feeling we are headed into like the Simonson run is like peak, and are we just going to continue on the upward trajectory, Faz?
Every issue's been a little bit better, right? Each writer has been improving each time. We'll have to see what we feel about DeFalco, but coming after Walt, everyone has been a little bit better than the predecessor. That must continue, right? My gracious host.
So no pressure. So we have in this span of comics, we have Tom DeFalco and his really pretty much entire run of Thor comics, at least the ones that are happening in order in a big chunk like this. So he will pick up finishing with issue 460, and then we're going to have Ron Mars that does a quick stint through issue 471, and then we're back to our buddy Roy Thomas, who's going to be with us until the end of this chunk of 100 comics, and he goes a little bit beyond that, I believe, before volume 1 eventually ends. So again, this look back is just going to end with 482, 83, something like that. So we're not quite at the end of volume 1 with this run. Faz, let me just get your 30,000 foot view of this chunk. Sort of like, what's the vibe here? What are we seeing, and what kind of trends, before we maybe chat a little bit about the different creator sections?
Sure. So overall, it's very much a return to the past, and it's a little jarring to me to go from the comic that puts it all together, the comic that gives us character growth and depth of character and true intelligence for everybody, and then 3 issues later we have him back yelling at rocks and screaming out the sort of attacks he's going to do as if he's a Dragon Ball Z villain. But there are a lot of ideas. Some of them are really cool, some of them I could do without. I do admire the gusto that these guys have had in going all in on the ideas that they had. And overall, I think they're still worth reading. If I was recommending to listeners, I would recommend you read this and read Walt kind of at the end of your volume 1 read, because there is a difference in quality. These are as good as what came before Walt, but reading them after Walt just made me mad, and that's not really fair to these. They're as good as the stuff that came before Walt, and it's not their fault that I was so angry while reading before I kind of got back in the swing of this is how things are. How about you, Herc? How did you feel about this 100?
Well, so I went into it, I think a little bit unfair with the mindset of like, oh, there's no way it can live up to Walt Simonson. So I don't think I gave them a fair shot right out of the gate. I started to get into the Tom DeFalco groove a little bit, because I truly do appreciate the whole Eric Masterson saga, and he definitely had a story that he wanted to tell, and he got to tell it. It feels like from start to finish, it feels like there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a lot of stuff that happens. And if you are the main writer on Thor, you get to do that. You get to make the calls and do whatever you want,
and the editor-in-chief of Marvel at the time, right? Like, he truly had full creative control.
Well, then in that case, really, no one's telling him he can't. So it's not even as much of a check with your editor to see if it's okay. It's more about, just do whatever you want and let's sell some comic books. So I think that I grew to get that vibe. I think I found a lot of things to like. There was some fantastic art in this run. There are definitely some standalone issues where I put down my iPad and I was like, that was a great issue. And we can talk about some of those nuggets and those highlights, really, monumental, memorable sort of events that happen in this run. And then there's a lot of slop. Maybe not a lot of.
Oh, we can't use that word. This isn't slop. This is still art. This is just not always great art.
There's stuff that this was the first area, and let's just cut to the chase here. There's a section in the entire Mars run where Thor gets Warrior Madness like for 10 issues in a row. And then he's also serving the goddess and like working for somebody in this Infinity Crusade timeline saga thing. And I just didn't like any of that. And it's rare that I'm like, I just didn't like it. There's times in DeFalco's section, there are parts where I'm like, oh, not the story I would have gone with, or like, the vibe is like, a little different.
That's dated. Like, you can feel that it was the 90s and their opinions were tough.
But there were very few parts that I was like, oh, I did not like that. Like, let's contrast it with some of the stuff that I liked the least a few hundred issues ago during the Roy Thomas, like, let's talk about Siegfried for 8 issues in a row. And it was like, what are we doing? That at least felt sort of like, I don't know, it felt sort of like prose. It felt sort of like historic, whimsical. It wasn't like offensively putting me in a certain, like, pigeonholing me in a certain mindset or something like that. But some of these things were just like, I think it boils down to, I don't like the comics where Thor is like working for someone else, or he's out of his goddamn mind for so long in a row.
And the problem with this set of creators too is, like, before here, everybody kind of takes the baton of the person before them and builds on what was built on. And all of these creators went, I hate your ideas, I'm doing my own thing. So DeFalco starts by unwinding everything that Walt did and bringing us back to the 60s. And then Mars comes, and there's actually a really nice, strong conclusion to DeFalco, taking Thor into a new direction he's never been on before. And Mars goes, I think that's stupid, I'm doing something else. And then Roy Thomas comes after the Warrior Madness is dealt with and goes, no, but like the idea of what Thor wanted to do on the Warriors Madness, that's a good idea. Let's have him do that. And then he fucking goes off to do his own thing. And it's just like, guys, like, does no one talk to each other? Like, you can't just have a new creator come in and have Thor's entire opinion and vibe flip on a 180 every time. Like, we went from people making fun of the beard to people loving the beard to people making fun of the beard to people loving Asgard to people hating Asgard to people being crazy and that's why they're hating Asgard to actually no, they're not crazy anymore, but they still hate Asgard. They're going to go do Earth stuff instead with real supervillains as their Odin figure. And it's just like, talk to each other. Give me a narrative. Like, up until this point, all 300 issues of Thor made sense as a logical progression of the character. And then eventually it felt like somebody pulling a doll back and forth, fighting over the direction it should be at. And that just made me deeply uncomfortable.
Well, let me get into some of the specifics here, and I think this is going to lead up to something that maybe we can get Ryan's take on. But in this arc, there was a lot of first appearances. A lot of stuff happened, right? Right off the bat, we get Dargo Kator, which is the 26th century Thor. We get Lear, the Celtic god of lightning. There's a pretty cool celestial storyline with Exitar, this like 2,000. Is it 2,000 miles? It's some gigantic celestial figure. We get Eric Masterson, Mongoose, Quicksand, Earth Force. We get Urok.
Force.
We get Night Thrasher.
Goats.
Nobilis. Two Thor clones. We get Nobilis and Replicoid. We get Replicoid's death in this part. We get the new Immortals. We get Code Blue with Mad Dog, Rigger, Jock, Fireworks, and Mother. We get the Thor Core, we get Grunk, Blood Axe, the God Pack, and then we get the death of the Recorder as Deus Ex Machina.
Oh, I forgot about how silly. Oh, man.
So a lot of interesting stuff. We get, obviously, the Masterson stuff. We have Heimdall becoming ruler of Asgard for a stint while Odin is under the Odin sleep. So Heimdall gets a crack at it as opposed to Balder. And then we also have Cap famously lifting Mjolnir in issue 390. So that's Ryan, an issue that you own.
Yeah,
that's you love it when other people lift Mjolnir, right?
I do. So unlike Walt Simonson
would be disgusted with you, Ryan. But Jason Aaron would love you. So there's that.
Yes, I love Cap. Is in fact, I just had a discussion with my 8-year-old son about this, and I love that he's so old that these are the questions he poses to me at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday. He's like, Dad, who's like your favorite superheroes? I would like to hear your top 5 favorite superheroes right now in order. Go now. And
I would like to hear your top 5 superheroes.
Well, it's like it's the 3 Marvel ones that are just non-negotiables. You guys all know it's obviously Thor. Otherwise, why am I doing this? And then second of all, it's Ben Grimm, and then third, it's Steve Rogers. So whenever Cap and Thor are able to have like a team up kind of buddy issue, I'm here for it all the time. And Cap is one of those characters where if there's a character in the Marvel universe, comics, movies, whatever, that is worthy of lifting Mjolnir, it is Steve Rogers. So when the first time I read 390, I didn't even really know what to expect. I just knew it was like the issue, and that issue by itself, I know it's part of the Seth Serpent God of Death like little story that they're telling, but Cap is so objectively awesome in that issue. And then at the end, he hands the hammer back, and Thor acknowledges, hey, like if there's one guy, among the mortals of Midgard that could lift Mjolnir, it's you. And Steve, and because Steve is that dude, he like hands it back no problem. And I was just like, you know what? This is the 2 of my favorite characters in comics, and showing off why I love them both so much in one issue. It's an issue I had to own. So yeah, it's a good one.
But it's also indicative of one of the things about DeFalco. Like this whole time frame, they added this new wrinkle to Thor, where if he falls from a high distance, he'll die. So he needs to be like caught by Spider-Man or caught by Cap or whoever because he's falling off a crane. And the immortal god of Asgard, who can tank a dying sun if he needs to, will die. He'll go kersplat if he hits from a slightly high position. So, he does a lot of cool stuff, and then he'll say things like that to make the story make sense.
Yeah. It's crazy that Spider-Man's the guy you trust to catch you from falling from a high distance. Because famously, he...
all you have to do is miss once, and then you'll never do it again, right? He's. I would trust him the most because he's failed once.
Gears turning in Eric's head. I was like, "Where the fuck is he going with this?"
Catch you from a high distance, and I was like, "Oh
like,
no!"
Spider-Man.
Yes.
Spider-Man never misses. Oh yeah, that one time that changed comics forever. Yeah.
Well, and that goes into Faz. Do you want to talk a little bit about? I think it was you who told me, wasn't it? Tom DeFalco is basically a huge Spider-Man fan and was trying to basically write Eric Masterson to be Peter Parker, and that's why
Yeah.
he's such a sad sap the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. So I can't take credit for that. William Spotted Bear the Third himself is the one who taught us that during our famous issue, one of our world famous award winning recordings of Across the Bifrost, How the Grunk Stole Christmas. I learned that Eric Masterson sucks, and he's supposed to suck,
and his life sucks, and it's written that way on purpose. Yeah,
and it's supposed to be like this, and he quips like Spider-Man, and he does all the Spider-Man stuff because at this time in Marvel Comics, the only character who was selling at all was Spider-Man. And DeFalco figured, I know how I can rejuvenate this God of Thunder guy after that really boring Walt Simonson Norse prose stuff. What if he's just Spider-Man? And what if Captain America's following him around and telling him, yo, you suck at this Thor thing. Get better or I'm going to take the hammer from you. Like Ryan established, I can do that. So let's make sure you earn that.
I mean, Eric Masterson, he gets his apartment wrecked multiple times. He merges with Thor in 408. He becomes Thor in 432. And then he becomes Thunderstrike in 459. So this is a huge character development for this new guy that was just introduced in this part of the volume 1. I find he's a really endearing character, especially when he's in hell looking for whose soul is trapped in the soul shroud. I think a little bit of the shell game of whose soul is in there, where's the soul, all that kind of stuff paid off nicely. I mean, that was really interesting stuff. And I love seeing Eric Masterson doing heroic things especially when he's not empowered by the power of Thor. And he's just like, I've got to get in there and get after it because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to suit up in some space armor. That's what heroes do. I'm going to suit up in some space armor and just go out there because why not? I'm along for this quest as well. And it's like, so that's commendable. That's respectable. I think he's got some of the right stuff to be a hero. I'm glad it was temporary and that actual Odinson comes back. So that was nice.
He definitely grew on me. I was really annoyed at the beginning just because of like half of his lines in the first couple books were, it's the 90s, pal, no more Mr. Nice God and stuff like that. And it was just like, okay.
Jesus Christ.
Like the whole premise of Thor though is that he's like even in the 60s, he was way before his time. Like he's a Norse god who speaks like he's from the 11th century. It shouldn't matter if it's 1962 or 1992.
Yeah.
He just is that way, right? But
he
grew on me. Go ahead.
Can I just interject a question here for you guys? And I know this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but we're also reading Dan Jurgens' run in our Creator Spotlight series. It's kind of running parallel with this. How does Masterson, as a more Midgard-centric version of Thor, compare to Jake Olsen in Dan Jurgens' run? How would you maybe compare and contrast the characters? Just like briefly, I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, for starters, we don't know squat about the real Jake Olsen because he quickly dies, and then it's the whole time it's in this part of the run, it's Thor acting out Jake's life.
He's cosplaying.
So we don't know what Jake would really do in a situation, and so all the times where we see Jake Olsen be heroic, it's just Thor in a mortal body.
This guy, like he has real wants and needs, Eric Masterson does, right? And he has a real ex-wife and real love interests and a real son that he is emotionally invested in. And they do a good job with the whole, like, I'm Thor, but I'm also Eric.
Right.
Both things are very important to me, and neither side is more important than the other. Whereas Jurgens is a lot more, and I'm not saying it's worse, because it's like a really interesting take where he's not actually mortal. But that one's more, I gotta pretend to be this freaking guy again. I just want to go save the world, but I gotta pick up Hannah from her school. Otherwise she's gonna tell me I'm a dick, and I owe it to Jake's memory to not be a dick. Whereas Eric fails because he spends too much time saving the world, and his job crumbles around him, and his love life crumbles around him, and his son doesn't get to spend as much time with him. It's a much more tragic and interesting human side of the story, because there actually is a human in the story.
And it's drawn out too. It's over the course of dozens of issues. You see this, and it's like, it's going to get worse with this custody battle, and it's going to get worse with this, ex-wife getting remarried and stuff like that. And you're watching this unfold in front of you, which is it's tragic on purpose.
I was just curious because we are reading these and reviewing them somewhat similar times. So, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I have some other nuggets to pepper in here, and then Ryan, maybe you can pepper us with questions.
Absolutely.
See where we land with this thing. I wanted to point out that this stretch of comics has some of the best Amora stories in all of Thor so far. I've got a few notable nuggets here for Amora. 383, we get a backstory of what she was doing during Secret Wars in Battle World. 398, Amora tries to kamikaze Seth and almost destroys herself in the process. 450 had some of the most amazing art. One of the standout issues of this section of Volume 1, 450 was an amazing comic. Amora is conversing with wolves who are like old friends of hers who are guarding the north border, and it's so freaking cool that she's just like chumming it up with these wolves. In 454, Odin attempts to execute the Warriors 3 for treason, but the Enchantress helps them escape. In 456, we get Amora's famous quote, "I seek nothing more than a love which is as unconditional as it is all-consuming."
Whoa.
So that is one of her best lines, super well written, and just encapsulates who she is as a character. 457, Heimdall asks Enchantress to marry him, and she's just like, "What, are you kidding me? Like, I'm the Enchantress. Like, what do you think's going to happen here?" And she kind of pushes him away.
One man can't contain me. Come
on, man. There's no way.
After thirsting after him for like 15 issues, let's be clear too. Like she's
chasing after him, but that's why she's Amora. She's self-sabotaging and being this, like, wanting this all-consuming, all-conditional love to just envelop her, but then when it's maybe right in front of her, it just doesn't work out for her. And then one more thing that I just like the artwork and the visuals with was in 459, she turns falling rubble into feathers, and I thought that was just a beautiful use of her magic powers and kind of cool. So a lot of the best Amora character development and really interesting storylines happening in this section to not be overlooked.
As you ripped through the whole thing, it kind of reminded me of one of the things that's interesting about DeFalco is that he took so many famous stories, the Celestial Saga, Ragnarok, the battle with the Egyptians, all those sorts of things, and was like, what if those weren't the end of those stories and there was a secret next thing happening that I will do in one issue? And while each of those issues was probably good, Walt Simonson's Surtur Saga being finished the way that it was in Thor 450 made me mad because it wasn't as good, and it was a silly way to fix it with some continuity stuff that Eric did point out we'd heard about before. I'm trying to be vague, listeners, so you guys can read it and see for yourselves. But we'd heard about it like 3 issues prior, as opposed to Walt, who had like woven a 15-issue story that was actually building on stuff all the way back from Kirby. DeFalco was like, "Fuck it, we're doing Ragnarok, let's roll." And it's just like, okay.
Doing Ragnarok.
And it's not just Ragnarok, it's the real one. That one that Walt did, it doesn't even matter. And it's like, you're telling me that like this fight between like 4 people is bigger than a 15-issue epic where all of the legions of Asgard and all of the legions of Muspelheim go to war? Okay, man. You do you. And the Celestial stuff similarly. It was interesting, it was cool. It really messed up the Celestial lore. And even the Egyptian stuff, we learned what happened to Odin, and it was just like thrown in as a solution for the Egypt problem instead of an actual reason that had been built up for a while. And it's just, I admire these are the big points of Thor, let's hit them again. But I don't know if you need to do that. Masterson was cool. Stick with that the whole way, At
least that was unique.
It was unique.
And it spawned Thunderstrike off into his own thing even for a while.
Yeah, which I think is the best use of him. Having him be like a 1/3 powered Earth Thor is very good, as opposed to Super Thor, who just is an idiot. This is better. He's trying, because, and again, it's not his fault. he's a human who's randomly made Thor. He's not trained in this at all.
Yeah.
But as Thunderstrike, he's better.
Yeah. Eric, do you want me to hit you with a few things?
Yes. Yeah. Go for it.
Well, just real quick, like overall, one thing I love about DeFalco is you can tell, like even in his Fantastic Four stuff and his Spider-Man stuff that he and friends did after this, because they are kind of like one of those duos that work together a lot. And everybody, if you want to know more, just quick plug here. I'll put this in the episode description. If you want to hear my very, very long ago interview with Ron Friends, we do talk about a little bit of this, his run on Thor with working with Tom DeFalco. So I'll put that in the episode description. And if you want to go listen to that, please do. Ron was a delight to talk to. Definitely very old school. So if you're used to modern comic book interviews, I would change that expectation. But in this run, DeFalco does something that I personally enjoy a lot. He does team up issues where, we see Thor with the Black Knight, one of my personal favorites. You see him with the Ghost Rider. You see him with, like the Avengers show up from time to time. Spider-Man shows up. The Hulk's in an early issue. Like I like when characters show up. Doctor Strange shows up. Like it's kind of just a cool. I love when that happens in comics. I don't know. That's the Saturday morning cartoon kid in me where I'm like, oh, my action figures got thrown into the same sandbox. Gee, golly, this is awesome.
Gee, golly.
So part of me really, really loves that. And I think DeFalco kind of he must have a soft spot for like that same kind of mentality, because he did also write a bunch of issues of Marvel Team Up, one of my absolute favorite books in Marvel history. My quick little bit, my last little bit aside, guys, in this run, Eric said that there were characters that debuted here that were significant. Was there like a standout new character that really made an impression on you in this run of 100?
I really enjoyed Mongoose. I thought that Quicksand was good. I think that Quicksand, you might think of her as just a knockoff of Sandman. I'm sorry, there's just this really racist part of the thing where they're like, I didn't know she was Oriental, and that's all I can think of now.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things it doesn't age well, but they're like, yeah, so Quicksand, surprisingly Oriental. But she's a good character because she has her own motivations. She's taking on nuclear power, I think, is her vibe.
Yes, that's her thing, yeah. For the record, Eric, that can't be the title of the episode, right? That would be wrong, correct?
Well, that Quicksand is surprisingly Oriental.
that would be wrong. Now, listeners, the problem with this run is it's always a step forward and a couple steps back. Like the racism is back a little bit.
Yeah.
The very on the nose writing is back, where they yell what they're saying the whole time. I'm going to stick with Eric Masterson as the new character that I like, Ryan, because he really did grow on me. And you guys remember, as I was reading through it, I did not enjoy the beginning. But by the end, I was like, I'm glad that this 40-issue story about him exists, because I thought it was worth telling. And that I'm the first person to admit that is reasonable to me. You've earned it, Eric. You were a good character. And you've earned it, Eric Teskey.
Hey,
you are great as well. Do you have any overarching thoughts about this era, Eric, that are worth talking about? Or have you hit everything you want to?
Did we say the 60s look back thing yet? I forget what we've already talked about.
I don't think we've said the 60s look back thing yet.
One of the big things that I think Faz and I came to this conclusion about this sort of era is that in a lot of ways, and I think this even is mentioned in the letter section, when they talk about, thank goodness you're bringing back the glory days. Like you're bringing, it feels like a comic from the 60s. It feels like we're back. And I think in the 90s, there's this part where people glorify or misremember or fantasize about back when things used to be good. They're like, oh, back in the 60s when everything was right, and it's like, wait a second.
White.
Oh yes.
Oh.
And so we get some of that. There's this this idea again. with the police are the real heroes, and we got to just stamp out crime, and people who do crime are making poor choices, and there's just a lot of just misses in terms of what are the contributing factors to society and to life in a city, and I don't know, different things like that. So it's to say that Faz and I just read 400 comics in a row. So we just read the comics from the 60s earlier this year. And so we know what the comics in the 60s were like. We just read them. And so the comics in the 90s were actually more racist, more sexist, had women in more compromised positions, and women wishing they were just housewives. And
the number of characters who went like, this is so scary. Why can't I just go wash dishes like I'm programmed to do? So many times, like it's been three separate characters.
Why can't I'm just a simple housewife? Why can't life just be simple? Why do I have to be a hero? It's like,
I don't want to be a hero. That's for the big tough men. I want to be there to raise children and cut and do the dishes and the laundry.
So what you're saying is this run of Thor is not exactly a feminist manifesto.
I think that compared to this run of Thor, the Kirby Lee era is a feminist manifesto.
Oh my God.
They were accidentally getting a lot of stuff right way back then, and they certainly weren't making things worse with like implanting these little nuggets or the like fanning these flames of, I don't know. It's just some of that stuff just doesn't land well.
Just to give you a quick like U.S. history lesson, Reagan was president. George H.W. Bush was hot on his heels.
Oh, baby, I understand that this is the era of everything was better back then when gender roles were more controlled or whatever it is that they were saying on the news, and you can feel that in this run. It's also a run of just continuity that was changed because they'd written themselves into corners and not because there was a reason to be changed, which was too bad because I'm all for moving the narrative forward and changing things, but changing things because they were stuck and needed to think of a way out of it is unfortunate. And it resulted in Roy Thomas coming back and fucking things up even further. Eric, do you want to talk at all about the poor ballad of Donald Blake? And I honestly don't blame him for being a serpent now in the current run of Thor because, God, he's been through a lot.
Let's just briefly talk about it because it does harken back to our retcon inside joke, and it does have a lot to do with where we leave things at the end of this 100 issues. And that is when not Eric Masterson, when Donald Blake, who was a real person, not a creation of Odin, when Donald Blake, the real person, struck a cane on the rock wall of a cave in Norway, he actually was frozen in time and was whisked away by Odin to Mount Wundagore, where he was still frozen in time, and Loki's wife saw him frozen in time there and tried to unfreeze him, which accidentally exploded his body and killed him. And she goes, oh shit. And so she decides to make a new fake Donald Blake frozen in time inside Mount Wundagore. And the Donald Blake and the Donald Blake that was changing with this whole time was actually a creation of Odin. But the real Donald Blake's body was blown up a long time ago. It's just like, why did you add that?
And listeners, to be clear, the lore before was that Thor was too brash and Odin wanted to teach him a lesson, so he created this like fake duality so Thor could walk among us humans, and that was kind of it. That was as far as it went.
A manifestation of Odin was a fake person with fake memories that Odin created.
And that's why he couldn't remember anything from like his time in school or anything, but all he can remember is like the first day that Odin put him there. And then we just decide to change everything. And it was the moment for me that I realized that Roy Thomas's weird continuity that he did before Walt wasn't weird because he was just the first guy trying to do it. It was weird because he's just got weird ideas. And I don't mind it, like I respect him for doing it. I think it's funny that like they fixed his error and he was like, well, now I'm going to make it even weirder to go from here.
You retconned my retcon, so you know what? Fuck you, I'm retconning it.
Let me make it even more retconning, right? Like just...
I mean, Roy Thomas, shoot your shot. If he's the writer on Thor and we're not, like, write what you want to write. But
100%.
it kind of validates like, okay, it's not me, it's him, it's needlessly complicated, and that's his thing, and that's okay.
It's his thing, yeah. And it's also it's I think why the early Thomas run is regarded as one of the best ones, and this Thomas run is regarded as one of the worst ones, because the first time it's whimsical and it's fun that he's doing this, and this time it's just what are we doing? Please stop. Stop, Roy.
Someone make sure Roy gets his meds.
What do you mean he's hanging out with the High Evolutionary, calling him essentially Odin, and hanging out with a bunch of creations, including people that are modeled after him? Like, it's just, what are we doing?
Godpack was so bad. I hated it so much. It's like Thor just decides to self-exile himself and go join up with this group of people and basically serve the High Evolutionary.
Mm-hmm. Like, because he doesn't like Odin anymore, because Odin keeps fucking with his soul, right? Which is annoying. I agree.
Yeah.
But your dad, who helped you save the universe multiple times via some sword and sorcery bullshit, fuck that guy. I'm gonna go hang out with a literal supervillain who forces animals and humans to evolve via craziness, and he's gonna be my dad now. That's my dad now. I've chosen him. I'm gonna work for him, and it's gonna be great.
Odin, you're not my real dad anymore. Yeah. God. Oh my god,
guys, you've got to read the 20 or so issues after DeFalco's done, because like Eric and I have alluded to, they are the issues of Thor that we dislike, and we are diehard Thor people who love all Thor comics, and even these ones hurt us. And I'm like, one of the last things I said to Eric when I got through this list was, the good news is I know that in 20 issues, the Marvel Universe is exploded and we get to start again. This Thor, who is being like this now, will die in like a couple weeks of me reading, and then we're going to be in a better spot.
So hold on. Your reminder for listeners is, don't worry, in a few issues, your favorite character dies.
No, but like, your favorite character, you're going to love the position that he's in at the end of DeFalco. It's a really cool new status quo for Thor. You're going to then start Mars and be like, wait, what do you mean we're not doing that? What do you mean we're doing Warrior Madness? Please no. Hopefully it doesn't go on for too long. 10 issues are going to go by. He's going to get over that. And you're going to be like, thank God he's normal again. He can go on to this new status quo. And then Roy Thomas is going to be like, that thing I thought about while I was mad, that's the right way of thinking. I'm still going to do that. I'm just not going to kill people anymore.
Yeah. You know what? I am going to do that.
And then at that point, you're going to be like, whatever, man. At least we know he dies soon. If you were reading Thor comics in the 90s, this must have been a very frustrating time where you didn't know that there was a great reset coming, where we were going to have Dan Jurgens, who has a objectively excellent run of Thor coming up, that will right the ship and kind of set us on a path that leads to it's a golden path, listeners. We have only amazing runs once we're through these next 20 or so. And that's what's keeping me going in these dark times.
Me going in these dark times.
I've been unnecessarily hard on Donny Cates. I owe him a lot of apologies, because a 7.5 out of 10 Thor run is a hell of a lot better than a 1 out of 10 Thor run.
I think we all need to, like, any run, any modern run we were critical of, we just need to write those guys thank you notes. Eric, how do you want to? Sorry,
I was just going to say it's at the point where, like, I'm glad that I read them, so I can say I read them. But there's a reason. There's a reason why a lot of these issues are sort of in the dustbin of the Thor memory. So
to bring it all the way around, though, there are still individual issues that we will circle back to for sure. There have been stories within these runs that were worth telling, and it's been cool that we got to read them by doing this. So that is really awesome. It's just not quite like the pre-Walt stuff where it was all so good and so enjoyable that we were like, this is really cool. I'm really glad we did this. I can't believe every comic of Thor is good. But, 780 out of 800 ain't bad.
Pretty good numbers.
Pretty good numbers.
I just wanted to say one last thing in here, Eric, and then I will pass it off to you for our conclusion. I'm really glad that I can do these kind of episodes with my best of friends.
Oh,
come on. You didn't even get it, Faz?
No, I get that it's a pun, but I'm just going to take you at face value that you're happy that you're retconned out of the being tied to a goat boat. I think you're just still pleased that you get to be a willful
I got to
participant
sit in
instead
the
of
back
yeah.
seat.
He's in
Yeah.
the back seat.
Just remember, Ryan, I'm going to be like Roy Thomas. Eric ruined my convoluted story. The next one's going to be even crazier.
I
Stay
go back
tuned
in the
for
trunk after this.
Oh, buddy, if you think a trunk is all you get, you better wait. Faz drives the bus next time.
And
He's
on
gonna beat me with a tire iron.
You're going to like it.
And on that note,
God.
we drive the station wagon onto the Rainbow Bridge and wrap up this part 4 edition of the Deific Duo's Journey into Mystery: Road to 800. Ryan is safely strapped in his car seat for now, and who knows where he'll be the next time we check in. But on behalf of my co-hosts, I just have to tell you, we ask you to do one thing as we wrap up the show here. Whether you are calling in Code Blue because there's a situation that requires super cops that can handle anything. Whether you
Because they're the real heroes.
because they're the real heroes. Whether you are a member of Earth Force waking up because you've been resurrected by Seth, the Egyptian god of death, with magical powers all of a sudden. Whether you are facing your biggest foe in Blood Axe and doing an homage cover, but then the issue doesn't quite hold up as nicely as it could have, we remind you to do one thing, and that is to stay worthy.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum. There's Will.
Will, this is what you miss every time you don't come to the Deific.
Well, I'm from the future and I read issue 800 and it's great, y'all.